Deadcore has undoubtedly flown under the radar in terms of advertising and promotion, and I think it's a damn shame. To be honest, I didn't even know it existed until I found it on humblebundle.com, and boy am I glad I found it, because Deadcore is an absolute gem. Developed by 6 friends who met while studying game design in France, who call themselves 5-Bit Games, and published by Bandai Namco, Deadcore, previously named Deadlock, in fact the website is still called deadlockgame.com, started life as an entry in the 7D FPS Game Jam back in 2012, an event which tasked developers with creating a first-person shooter in just 1 week. After a minor crowdfunding campaign, real development began back in January 2013. Aimed at turning their creation into a full commercial release, they soon caught the eye of publisher Bandai Namco, who promptly snapped the game up. Bandai Namco's decision has proved to be a good one, because Deadcore is fantastic. What do games like Super Meat Boy, I Want to Be That Guy, and Deadcore have in common? Well, for one thing, they all seem to be made to be enjoyed by masochistic gamers who love to yell at their screen, but there's a market for that. Deadcore plays like what I would describe as a 3D platformer, involving some FPS elements, and it's insanely hard. The gameplay reminds me of the type of Counter-Strike Global Offensive maps involving surfing and jumping puzzles that you would find people playing late at night. Even when you first spark up Deadcore, you'll be greeted with a main menu showing a great big tower in the eye of a storm, with cubes swarming around and music that would be right at home in Mass Effect or Tron. From here you have 2 options: speedrun, for those of you who want to redo older levels, beat your old time, or show off your skills to the leaderboards, or story mode. Now I say story mode, but it would be more appropriate to call it a series of levels strung together fairly loosely by various collectibles called T-logs. There's no overarching narrative, no cutscenes that progress a linear plot, and you won't meet any NPCs, explore a hub level, or any other things that have come to define campaign nodes in many contemporary games. Instead, the T-logs you pick up hold text that give you a vague idea of what's going on and fill in a bit of the backstory about the world you occupy, why you're there, and just what this mysterious tower you're actually climbing is. Besides that, no real sense of story is handed to the player, and Deadcore just can easily be played as storyless, more challenge-orientated game. Another thing that isn't handed to the player is any formal form of guidance in terms of how to play the game. You start out plummeting through moving structures until you eventually land on the ground and fade to black. You awaken to a bit of static that eventually dissipates, and then the game begins. Nothing pops up on the screen at this point, although you don't have to be a complete whiz kid to be 99.9% sure that moving the mouse will probably allow you to look around, pressing space will make your character jump, and the WASD or the arrow keys will move your playable character around the game's world. After a short movement spent finding your bearings and taking in the futuristic scenery, you may spot strange words floating above in the distance. The words jump twice and higher will slowly appear and disappear in an orangey colour in random sequence. I'm ashamed to admit that it took me a while to realise the game was hinting at a fact that I could double jump to reach higher areas. These cryptic messages appear throughout the game and slowly grow more complicated. They serve as hints to the player. Okay, I lied, there is a tiny bit of guidance. Those with a keen ear will notice that the sounds your character make while moving around are distinctly robotic. This is yet another unanswered question, because the text found in T-logs are distinctly human, and it holds quite a bit of emotion. You can only speculate about your avatar's true nature, and hope you'll receive your answer at some stage. At first you'll find the jumping puzzles fairly easy, but through some well-judged pacing, Deadcore slowly introduces features in an utmost undetectable way. You'll start out simply jumping from one platform to another in various patterns, but later on you'll be using various rays of light which propel you higher into the air, and at one point you'll need to dodge red lasers. Before you know it, you'll catch yourself doing things 10 times more complicated than you were a mere 5 minutes ago, without even realizing it, such as modifying gravity and slowing down moving objects. It was only when I stopped playing for a while and picked it up a few hours later that I realized how complicated things had actually become. 5-Bit respects the intelligence of players rather than battering you over the head with a series of mandatory tutorials or on-screen tooltips. The developer instead takes a page from the book of Valve, gradually introducing the basic concept of mechanic and playing with it, before gradually mixing it up and introducing other elements to contend with. Before you know it, you'll be contending with 6 or 7 different mechanics in a single short sequence without even thinking about it. And this well-considered approach and allows you to immerse yourself in the on-screen action. Shortly into the game you'll acquire something called a SwitchGun, Once again, you're given little to no instruction on how to use it, and you're left to experiment. After a while of inevitably shooting at random things, something might catch your eye. A colourful symbol highlighted in the otherwise blandish grey surroundings will stand out to the player, and shooting these symbols will change or switch, hence the name, how your surroundings act and can make your own surroundings easier to traverse. The SwitchGun also allows you to turn various things on and off, such as turrets and those rays of lights I mentioned earlier. This becomes essential later on, while forgetting to turn something off can send you flying off the tower to your doom, requiring a respawn and adding precious seconds to your part-time. With the SwitchGun in hand, things only get more complicated. Within minutes you're required to keep one eye on where you're jumping, as your surroundings are constantly shifting, one eye on potential threats such as turrets or red laser beams, and if it were possible to have a third eye, another looking out for the highlighted symbols to shift the platforms. The result is what I call glorious frustration. Trust me, you'll fail over and over again and you'll definitely get frustrated, but each time you'll restart a section and you'll learn from previous mistakes. And you'll find yourself progressing further and further until you eventually finish it. The thrill of finally finishing a tough level is equivalent to that of defeating a particularly hard boss in a Dark Souls game. Soon enough you'll see climbing further up this cubic mechanically monstrosity that seems to be like a living breathing thing the way it moves around, as an addiction. In terms of visuals, Deadcore channels Tron and Portal, and base colour schemes is dark, spaced out and sterile. But there are highlighted elements that bring the edge off what would otherwise be an extremely boring visual experience. Something else that Deadcore gets right is the draw distance on the tower you're climbing. It's an amazing feeling to be able to turn around at any point and look down at the levels you've already conquered, before looking up at the trials and obstacles that await you. The effects is both a sense of pride and anxiety. All in all, Deadcore is a wonderfully pure video game that rewards patience and perseverance. 5-Bit Games has managed to provide a great challenge to those who attempt to climb its mysterious tower. The 8 or so hours it takes to finish will provide you with near flawless experience, while those seeking to perfect their runs through various gauntlets could easily sink dozens if not hundreds of hours into climbing the leaderboard and finding shortcuts that shave precious milliseconds from their time. I would go as far as to say that Portal could have a potential rival on its hands. The puzzles are just as challenging in their own way, the level design is unique, and the shroud of mystery that surrounds a mechanical tower provides a grand sense of awe. Steam Workshop support is sadly missing in the initial release. The ability to construct levels from various building blocks which make up each section would work wonders for extending the game's lifespan and building up a dedicated community. So if 5-Bit Games want an idea on how to build the already great experience they've crafted, this is something for them to look at. Deadcore may have well come out of nowhere with minimal hype and little marketing despite having been picked up by a major publisher, but don't let that fool you. For a game resulting from jam and crafted by a small team of passionate designers, Deadcore is up there as one of the most impressive PC releases of the year so far. Whether you're a fan of platformers, puzzlers or perfecting speedruns, you owe it to yourself to at least give it a look. You won't regret it. If you would like to win a copy of Deadcore, make sure you comment on this video and leave us with a like. And a congratulations to Termi War who picked up a copy of 100% Orange Juice. Just contact me via the comments here and I'll send you that through. So as always guys, may your games be good.